Hello, it's Joey, and today I'm going to share my 10 best books for making junk journals and ephemera. So that's what to buy and why. What to buy for making your junk journal signatures, your covers, but also for making your lovely tags and envelopes and pockets and beautiful spreads. It's all too easy when we're looking at books to buy too many, to spend a lot of money and really fill up your craft space, and I've definitely done this. So I've devised an approach which has really helped me pick the books that suit my needs. So after watching this video, I not only want you to be really inspired with your crafting, but hopefully save money by making smarter decisions and having less clutter in your craft room. The 10 books that I'm talking about today have all passed one or more tests, one or more questions that I ask of them when I'm making those buying decisions. And the questions are hopefully things that will help you when you make the same buying decisions too. So I ask 4 things, and these are: do they fit with my style? So does that book you're looking at fit with the style of junk journaling that you have? Or does it have multiple uses? Or is it just absolutely brilliant at one purpose? And I do have some like that. Does it offer something different from what you already have? Or are you repeat purchasing? Are you duplicating what you already have just because you like it? And overall, does it make you happy when you play with it, when you feel it, when you tear a page out, when you fold a page? Does it bring you joy? So having put together these questions that I've found really helpful, I've put together a little portfolio of 10 books, and these are the ones I'd love to share with you today, along with a lot of examples as to how I use them and why they fit within my little collection. The first book that I'd like to share with you is a Victorian flower album by Henry Terry, and if there was one book alone that I had to keep in my collection, this would probably be it. It's quite a large book on a landscape style, so fairly thick pages, which means you can do quite a lot with it, and just absolutely stunning pictures. I have shared page turns of this before, and I'll never get bored of looking at the pages. I mean, just look how absolutely stunning that is. So this, if we look at those questions, for me passes a lot of the tests. I feel it fits with my style. I like the botanical feel, and it has a vintage design to those pictures. It has multiple uses, and I'll show you some examples. At the time I bought my first one, which was at a car boot sale for about £1, it was definitely different from anything I already had at the time, and every time I use it, it brings me joy. So you can see the pages here. I've got another one behind. I have done a multiple purchase. I've used this because it's got thick pages in quite a lot of ways. So I've used the covers I've used the pages as junk journal covers, and I think the images are just absolutely stunning. And all I've done is just fold one over. Most of the images here are landscape, so it works really well for that. And you also then get these absolutely beautiful pictures on the inside of a journal. I've even used the index page because I thought the colour of the paper was just gorgeous. But it's also great for pages within a journal. So here's another junk journal that I've played with, and I added it just as a page within a signature. Again, I just folded it over, and it's robust enough to take extra envelopes if you wanted to add envelopes, and I've just had some fun writing on there and doing a bit of a journal spread. When I was feeling a bit more daring, I did tear up a page, and I used it in a journal spread in another junk journal. This just has a map as a cover. So I loved the purple and the design of this flower, and it went with a little pocket over here and the paper on this envelope. I've used it in many different ways in this journal. I've also used it just as a little piece down here on a tag, and then I made the tag into a corner pocket. So you can use a book like this in so many ways, and it definitely qualifies as number 1 in my top 10 best books for making junk journals and ephemera. The second book in my top 10 collection is this New English Dictionary by Odhams, Odhams, if you're looking for it. And this one dates back to, I think it's about the 1930s. There's a date in here somewhere. March 1932, this edition first printed. The reason I like this, and it qualifies in my top 10, is it definitely offers something different from many other books. First of all, it has that absolutely tremendous vintage feel. The pages are aged naturally, and I just love the font in it. So I love that strong, dark, but slightly older looking font with some darker lettering and then some paler lettering. And I like to use this in a number of ways, partly because of the texture of the paper. So I like stamping on these pages and painting them. So here what I've done is just taken some really beautiful craft cardstock, and I was making a junk journal on this occasion with some nice pieces of paper there, and I felt that this went on the front, so I've just put a little image, a little text box down here that talks about what a journal is, and I really enjoyed painting on it. So the paper in this book absorbs the paint nicely but still allows all of that pigment to come through. And I've used it in a similar way in spreads when I've done Junk Journal with Me. So here I stamped an image and painted with more autumnal colours. I think I was just using watercolours each time. I really enjoyed doing that. So this is a book that I feel can be used to create something really, really special and personal in your journals, and you can definitely add the odd page, maybe sideways, just to put another sheet of paper into a signature. So does it pass the test of those 4 or so questions? Yes, I think it does. It adds some vintage style, it has multiple uses, and I didn't have anything the same as this in my collection when I bought it. I bought this, I think it was at a car boot sale, and I think I paid about £1 for it, and it definitely makes me happy and brings me joy. The third book in my top 10 today is Purnell's Concise Encyclopedia of Geography. So you can see it's quite a large book, probably a little more than A4, and I use this for lots of different things, but it's primarily the weight of the paper and the nature of the paper that leads me to say that this is great for sitting in my collection of top 10. This particular geography book has got both coloured pictures and black and white pictures, which makes it quite useful. And just in case you can't get the geography book, this is part of a series, so I do also have Purnell's Concise Encyclopedia of Nature. In fact, I started with this one. This was a gift from somebody who'd had it just for a long time and was having a clear out, so I said yes to that. This has some beautiful images in it, but again, the paper is quite thick, it's a great size, and it's actually brilliant for using structurally in your projects. So what I like to do is use a page from either of these books to add strength and robustness, and then add other patterns of paper on top. So I used it, for example, as the lining to a journal cover when I was enjoying playing with some Artie May's William Morris papers. So I printed the papers on just copy paper, I think it was actually 90 GSM, but I glued them gently to a page from the Encyclopedia, and then I sewed around. And the pages in this are quite old. They're not necessarily vintage looking, but they're soft. The paper's quite soft, and it makes it really easy to sew around it. So I had some fun with the 2 layers stuck together, making this journal cover. I did something similar with some other patterns and just added butterflies and sewed on top. I've also used it, again getting the most out of the structural form, to put together this large envelope pouch, and you can see here I've used it for the top flap, I've used it for the front, and I've also used it for the back here, and then I've added other layers and decoration on top. So it was really great for that because it's a big sheet. And then the third example in a similar vein is this piece I made into a little journal folder the other day. I have put some beautiful papers on the outside, as I did with the William Morris cover, and I've actually left some of it visible. So I've added some pockets and put tags in, but I wanted to show off just a little bit of the black and white and the text, because I think that matte paper is just really, really beautiful. So those are 3 examples from a really great book, and I'll be honest, if I see any of these or the geography books in any charity shops, I would definitely buy again, and I tend to see them on eBay as well for around the £6 or £7 mark. The next book that I want to share with you today is called Sketches of Bird Life by C.F. Tunnicliffe, and this is quite a wide book, quite a big book, lots and lots of pages in it, and they are drawings and sketches of birds with this gorgeous ink handwriting. The pictures are mostly quite large, lots of neutral shades, which I think is absolutely wonderful, and I think the images are just amazing. So you can see here magpie, owl, black and white, beautiful birds here with a bit of red and black on, and don't they make you want to do something really special and different with them? So this was an example of me seeing a book. Again, I think it was firstly at a car boot sale, and I think I bought it for about £1. And what this one allows me to do, and the reason I think it fits really well in my top 10, is it lets me do something a bit different. So I like to have a play around at making not just junk journals but other forms of folders. And I should probably say at this stage, if you are wanting to just find out more about what a junk journal is, and I've kind of assumed that that's something that you're familiar with, it might not be. I do have a video answering the question, what is a junk journal? And that is definitely for beginners, so I'll link that in the description box down below in case that helps you. But this book has multiple uses, and it probably wins on offering something different from what I already have, and because of that, it's one of the books that makes me really, really happy. So let me share a little bit of what I've made with this. So the first thing I had a go at, making use of the bird images, was a bit of a folder or a folio. There you can see that image from one of the pages. And I just put together, with some extra cardstock and some other pages from another book, an extension to the page. So I made it wider, and with some folds and some pockets and a flappy envelope and another pocket. I just had a lot of fun putting a little bit of a folio together, and I've made quite a few of these. Again, I've got videos for these on my channel. There's a page from the vintage book that I showed you previously. So that was just a relatively quick and easy folder that I put together, making use of one of the pages from this book. I also went a bit larger and had a go at using a page to decorate the inside of a folder, and this was a collaged cover, so the technique for this one was a bit different. But here what I did was just take a page from that book and use it to add a really dramatic image to an interesting folder. So because it's different, because the images are big, and because they're really so special, I think it needs something special as a project, so I felt this was something to have a go at and really make use of that book. But I really enjoy having that in my collection of my top 10, and I think it deserves the place. I really get a lot of joy out of playing with this book. The next book in my collection is, well, it's really a category of book, which is music sheets or music paper. And I have quite a few different books with music sheets in them. To be completely honest, some of these I just can't cut up. I can't do it. So although I bought this one, I haven't been able to do anything with it, in fact, because I can't bring myself to do it. But I have used other pieces of music paper in my crafting and in my junk journals, and really that's the point I wanted to make today. And with all of these books that I'm sharing today, it's really about maybe suggesting types of book as opposed to a specific book that you might want to just have a think about as you build your collection. So music sheet paper can sometimes be quite thin, and I like to choose that because it gives me that little bit of tinkle, that little bit of crackle with my sheets. So texture and sound is actually quite important, but the visuals of music paper are just really different, really special and really fun to use in our projects. So to give you an example of some of the things I've done, I've been playing at making tags, and I put together a substrate, and on the top layer of that substrate I've been using thin sheets of music paper as background and then painting over them. This is probably a better example. I can just see a little bit of the music note peeping through there, and it gives something just a little bit extra rather than having a plain background or a plain background to paint on. Here's another one with a number of layers, and the back layer here is painted music paper. And I also use music sheets in some more botanical and bird textured tags recently as well. So as well as using music paper in my junk journals, I think having books in your top 10 that you can pull sheets out of would be great to give you that background and really have fun making your ephemera. The next book or book type that I want to talk about is maps or atlases, and I bought this ridiculously large atlas quite a long time ago, and it sat on my shelves, and I knew it was different, I knew I loved it, and I knew it could do something quite different in my projects. So it qualified on those grounds, but I probably took too long to decide what to do. What I've found works really well with this beautiful design is using it as the background of a really large pocket or a pouch. So with pages that are this big and this interesting, I mean, just look at, you get all of these sheets of paper, a huge book. Again, I actually bought this in a charity shop. I think it was either 50p or £1. I decided to take a page, tear it in half, and then use that as the basis for a really large pouch. So I get to see the lovely, lovely maps. The paper's great for sewing on, it's not too thick, and I also think the colours of this are really fantastic and can go with lots of style of junk journal. So the pockets that I made have got a number of layers. I tucked quite a bit of ephemera in, I played at tucking in some tags, some journal cards, I've got some little punched out leaves here. I just folded over a little bit of old vintage book page because that seems to go really well, and at the top here, because it's large, really great big piece, it meant that I could make an envelope and then put something inside that. So I feel this passes the test on several fronts. So it's different, it undoubtedly brings me joy, as many books do, and I've got lots of different things that I can make from it because of its beautiful, beautiful features. So I would definitely recommend some form of atlas or map in your collection. If you can't find this Times book, then just look out in other charity shops or thrift stores. So here's one I picked up last week because I was slightly scared of running out. I don't know if you get that feeling as you start to use a book. I already think I need to look for the next one. So this again, although it's not as big, it's got those gorgeous greens and those map pages, and I feel like I can even make something fantastic with the index pages too. So this is another book to sit in my top 10, and if I ever use them up, I will undoubtedly be repurchasing something like this. The next book in my top 10 is this beautiful Spanish dictionary, and I've found some uses for it which I didn't really expect. It came to me from a mother-in-law who taught herself to read Spanish because I have some Spanish relatives in my family group, and the reason I think it's really fantastic is it has some features about it that the other books that I'm talking about don't have, so it feels a bit different, which is great. It is relatively white in its background, and that's something that I've made use of. I love the font. I love the mixture of really dark black words and paler words and smaller text as well. It's very light, so that can be quite useful, as some of my other book pages are quite heavy, and it's quite a reasonable size. And of course what we get is a large quantity of them, so I don't really feel the need to go out and buy another just at the moment. So this has come into its own in a project I've done a few times recently on my channel. It's brilliant for making journal cards and tags where you might want to colour on top of the book page in some way. So what I've been doing is making up a substrate with some basic book pages, and then on the top layer I add some of my Spanish book pages, and you can just collage if the sheets aren't exactly the right size. It doesn't need to be perfectly fitting, it doesn't need to be all vertical, or you can rip it up and put some pieces sideways. And then what it's great for is painting on top, and all I've done here is painted some leaves and some plants and used a pen to scribble on top as well. And then I've been cutting that up and using it to make just these cute journal cards. So I think it's the white background in that Spanish book page that really helps this little image pop. It works really well with birds, but it's also, oh, look at the colours on those. I think the colour works really well against white. I thought about having a play with butterflies, so I think I might sew around these, and again, because the page is thin, it works really well. It's easy to sew around. I've got some just sitting here waiting to be cut up. I could make belly bands, or I could make tags or journaling cards out of those. It's also been used on the back of that envelope pouch, which I mentioned earlier, as it allows these beautiful teal colours to pop. So it's quite versatile with the whiteness of the background, and I quite like the fact that that contrasts then with some of the more vintage and aged papers, that Encyclopedia that I mentioned as well. So an incredibly useful book to have. It would be foldable to make into pockets as well because it's quite lightweight. So definitely one that I would recommend to have in your top 10 of your best books, and one worth spending money on. My collection of 10 best books for junk journals and ephemera just wouldn't be complete without at least one William Shakespeare. And I actually have a few in my collection, which I guess is a little bit naughty, but they are all a tiny bit different. What they mostly benefit from is not only something special when you see the words and the titles of each of the pages, they're just gorgeous font, they're quite a useful size, they're thin. Now, does that make them special enough to qualify in my top 10? Well, I think that when you use them as collage, they really come into their own. So what I've been enjoying doing is, firstly, I've used them as the top layer in the substrate of my collage masterboards. So that's one way that you can use the pages, because just like the Spanish dictionary, you could then paint on them. But that wouldn't be enough to qualify, would it, on our test, on our 4 questions? Where I think they really do come into their own is as collage on the back of tags and journaling cards. So on this one, I have a print from a digi, and they're absolutely beautiful. These are a new set from Louise Heinzel, so do come back on the 19th of June because you'll see how I use all of these. What I have done is collage the back with sympathetic colours, and I've mixed in with it some pages from my William Shakespeare there, and I just feel that that works really well. And then what I've done is some fast flow sewing to add texture, and I would then cut them out and make them into ephemera. Here's a few more examples. You just end up with some little pieces like this here peeping out behind some other types of book page, and I like the variety, so it's one of those that complements other pages. We've just got a little journaling card, another one there, I've added an eyelet, and what I've been doing with this type of project is just gluing a little bit of fabric on top and then I will sew on it and then cut them out. I've stamped on this as well. So it's just a really fun way of using, here he is, here's William, using those William Shakespeare pages, A Midsummer Night's Dream, as collage, so that when you cut out tags and when you cut out journaling cards, you've just got something super interesting and maybe fitting with that vintage style on the back of your ephemera. It's probably worth pointing out that William Shakespeare collections are relatively easy to find in charity shops in the UK in particular, and typically I would spend about £1 on a book like this in a charity shop in the UK. So maybe this is something that you could find in a thrift store in the US or in a thrift store wherever you are. The 9th book to feature in my top 10 books for making junk journals and ephemera is this Concise Guide in Colour Herbs, and it's quite a small book. You may have seen others use it. It's just stunning. It has lots of individual pages of beautiful images. So there's description on one side and some lovely images to use in our projects on the right hand side. You could pick some of these to fit with seasons. You could tear them out or cut them out to go on your envelopes to make an altered envelope. You could put them in a journal spread. You could put them on a pocket. So absolutely stunning book. I feel the size of it works really well on some of our projects. So for many of our 4 reasons, it really does qualify in my top 10. Again, I found this at a car boot sale. I think it was probably £1. I've had it for quite some time. It is brilliant for getting going on making journal spreads. So this was one of my first, and I really enjoyed putting this together. So I literally just took a page out. I made the sides of the page look a bit rough. I looked at the picture and put together something with maybe some sympathetic colours from the colour in the flower, and really just hopefully made a bit of an image on a page from that with a little bit of washi and an image down here. So you can use it as a page in a junk journal that you make, and I've also used it because it's the right size, having fun in an altered book. So this was a project I put together, I think it was about a year ago, and I just really enjoyed making another spread in my altered book with it. I picked a nice vibrant flower, I painted the pages to go with the colour of the flower, and then I added some layering with a tag, with some little labels, and I did some journaling and wrote something over here. So that's actually a William Blake poem. So I feel it fits with my style. It's different, it's a different size, and images this size, so a book this size, I just think has many uses and is really special. So that definitely qualifies in my top 10. And the last book or book type to feature in my top 10 is the ubiquitous aged book with matte pages, just a regular book size. So this isn't any book in particular, this is just one book. I have bought many books like this either in charity shops or actually online on eBay as a collection, and they come in a bundle. And these are the ones that I put together to make the substrate for the various tags and journaling cards. So I take pages out, and because I have many of them, I feel that it's okay to use quite a lot to make a 2 or 3 layered substrate by just gluing the pages together. And then you've got a huge amount of versatility with that as a base. So here I've covered it with pages from a weather diary and I've painted on top, and that could be the base for journaling cards and tags. This one I've cut a bit off already actually. I am using with a rainbow background, so I just painted that with watercolour. I think there might be a bit of mica in that, and I'm just making into some cute little umbrella tags. These are images from Shabby Dabby Doodah. I showed you the journaling cards, and they are brilliant for slightly wider cards and adding whatever images you want to add there. And they also formed the interior or the back to the bird folio that I showed you earlier. So they are glued behind here. I basically made a collage cover with some lovely vintage images, but the base of this is basically our basic bread and butter, our vintage simple book pages. So those are the 10 book types or books that I have included in my top 10. Let me know what your favourite books are and why they qualify in your top 10 list. Don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this as well. I hope to see you soon.